Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Alright, so this is going to be our podcast and YouTube series covering all the characters of Sentinels of the Multiverse. Today we'll be covering the next Complexity 1 character, which is K.N.Y.F.E. I have to say that before I did this episode, I wasn't really that interested in this character. I have played with her before. Now, some main things about her is that... So, she's mainly a damage dealer, right? That's what she mainly is. That's what mainly her role in a team would be. Now, she mainly deals damage to one target, okay? Most of her equipment cards and her base power allow her to deal damage to one target. She does have a selection of cards, I think only one of them actually, that allows her to deal damage to more than one target. She's actually got two, right? But for the most part, well, in actual fact, she has 6 in total, because she's got 3 lots of each card. So, mainly, though, she tends to deal damage to one target. So, she's pretty good at dealing damage to one target. She can consistently get up to, dealing 4 to 5 damage to one target each turn, which is pretty good. But she doesn't really have a big ability, like any equipment cards that allow her to deal damage to more than one target. Okay, all her equipment cards really only allow her to deal damage to one target. So, be aware of when you're playing with her that if you are playing against a villain that has a lot of targets, and you need a damage dealer who, if you're only going to have one damage dealer in a team, and you're playing against a villain that has a lot of targets, that puts a lot of targets in play, probably might not be best to have her as your only damage dealer. But apart from that, she's mainly a damage dealer. Now, one of the things that we talk about every single character is, do they have the ability to destroy ongoing and environment cards? Now, she has 0 ability to destroy environment cards apart from target cards by doing them damage. She does have a minor ability to destroy ongoing cards, but it's not as reliable because you have to destroy a target for it to work. So, not really. So if you're going to take her in a team, just be aware you're going to need other characters that can destroy ongoing cards and environment cards if you are going to take her, right? Now, the 2 types of damage that she mainly deals, or that she pretty much always deals, is melee and energy, right? That's the 2 types of damage types that she deals to targets. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through her base power, and then we're going to go through all the cards. So her base power... Oh, by the way, this is K.N.Y.F.E. Just in case I didn't mention it at the beginning. Okay, so the base power is, it's called Energy Lance, and it's a power. K.N.Y.F.E. deals one target 2 energy damage. Okay, so that's the base power. Now, her first card, which there are 3 of them in the deck, is called Amplified Combatant. And this is one of the 2... types of cards that she has that deals damage to more than one target. So K.N.Y.F.E. deals up to 3 targets, 1 melee damage and 1 energy damage. Now, the good thing about this card is if she's actually got 2 equipment cards in play, because she has 1 equipment card that buffs her melee damage by 1, and then she has another equipment card that buffs her energy damage by 1. So if she has both those equipment cards equipped, instead of doing 1 melee damage and 1 energy damage to each to 3 targets, she actually does 2. So instead of doing 2 total damage, she does 4 to 3 targets, which is actually really, really good. But this is one of the So she's got 3 of these in the deck. This is one of the 2 cards that she has that deals damage to more than one target. The next card is... oh, and by the way, just in case, the previous card, Amplified Combatant, is a one-shot. The next card, which she has 4 of them in her deck, is called Battlefield Experience. Now, it's an ongoing card, and when this card is destroyed, you may draw 1 card and play 1 card. And it's a power, and the power is K.N.Y.F.E deals 1 target 2 melee damage and 2 energy damage, then destroy this card. Now there's 4 of them in the deck. Now you might wonder, like, well, why do I want to play this when I use the power it gets destroyed? Well, the reason that you would play this card is it allows you to draw another card. So it's all about helping her getting to the equipment cards that she needs. And you're doing damage along the way. And that card's called Battlefield Experience. The next card is called Energy Burn. It's a one-shot. K.N.Y.F.E deals 1 target 3 energy damage. Then, if that target has 10 or more HP, K.N.Y.F.E deals it 2 energy damage. So this is kind of one of the cards that you're primarily going to want to be using on a villain target. But if you're playing against a villain that has targets in play that have more than 10 HP, good card to play on them as well. And remember, it is buffed by the equipment card that buffs energy damage. And there's 3 of them in the deck. And it's called Energy Burn. The next one is called Flawless Execution. It's an ongoing limited. And whenever damage dealt by K.N.Y.F.E reduces a target to 1 HP, destroy that target. It's not a bad card. I mean, it's got an additional benefit, but when it comes into play, is not really going to be that often. But when it does come into play, it's very, very useful. Now, there's 2 of these in the deck. It's not as high priority to play this card as it is to play some of the other cards. Okay, so the next card is Focusing Conduit Blade. It's an equipment, it's limited, and what it does is increase energy damage dealt by K.N.Y.F.E by 1. After this card is destroyed, you may play an equipment card, and it has a power, and the power is K.N.Y.F.E deals 1 target 3 energy damage, destroy this card. In actual fact, if you use this power, it's actually going to deal 4 damage because it also increases energy damage by 1. Now, for the most part, you're not going to be wanting to use this power because it destroys the card. You're going to want to keep this card in play so that every time you do energy damage, it does an additional 1 damage. Now, there's 4 of these cards in the deck, so you kind of only need 1. So if you ever have to discard an additional card, and you've already got one of these in play, discard this card. Now she has a card, a one-shot called For the Greater Good. K.N.Y.F.E deals herself 3 psychic damage. If she takes damage this way, you may draw 1 card, play 1 card, and use 1 power. Now, I'm not sure that I would always want to play this card, because doing damage to yourself, especially 3 damage, is quite high. And if you've got like Legacy in play, and he's got Inspiring Presence, you're actually going to be doing 4 damage to yourself. But it is a powerful card. One way that I would play this card is if you're playing as there's one character that I can't remember his name, but he plays constructs, and he has a construct that he can play on any character that reduces damage they take by 1. If you play this, if you have any cards in play that help K.N.Y.F.E reduce the damage that she takes, then this card becomes much better to play. But for the most part, you have to make a decision as to whether you want to play this card or not. If you've got multiple equipment cards in play, then I suppose it could be good to play this card. But since the majority of our equipment cards destroy themselves, you got to decide whether or not you're going to play this. A lot of the times I don't play this card, but it is a good card to play. The next one is one of the targets that she had, one of the cards that she has that allows her to deal damage to multiple targets. It's a one-shot, and it's called... Oh, just in case, the previous card that I talked about is called For the Greater Good. So the next card is called Incidental Contact. It's a one-shot. It's her other card that allows her to deal damage to multiple targets. And what it is K.N.Y.F.E, it's a one-shot, and it's... K.N.Y.F.E deals each target 1 energy damage. K.N.Y.F.E may deal any target dealt damage this way an additional 1 energy damage. So this is one of the cards that she has that allows her to clear the deck, especially if there are a lot of targets in play. This is a very good card to play, but it does do damage to your own characters, to your own hero targets. It has the ability to do 2 damage if you've got the equipment card in play that increases energy damage done. This is a good card to keep in play, especially if you're playing with a villain that likes to put a lot of targets in play. You might want to keep this card in your hand just in case they end up playing one of those one-shot cards or ongoing cards that bring lots of villain targets into play. Or if there's a lot of environment targets in play, this can also be another good card. And there's 3 of them in the deck. The next card is called Infiltrate and Obfuscate. I'm not sure about the pronunciation of that word. It's an ongoing limited. And the first time K.N.Y.F.E would be dealt damage by an environment target each turn, you may redirect that damage to the villain target with the second highest HP. Not a bad card. It's actually a really good card. You always want to have this in play. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to have it in play. So it makes you a little bit tanky. The next card is an ongoing limited. It's called Kinetic Neutralizer. And it increases the damage dealt by K.N.Y.F.E to the villain target with the highest HP by 1. So, as you can see based on this card, she generally wants to be dealing damage to the villain. Okay? Because she's really good at dealing damage to one target. And all her equipment cards basically focus on dealing damage to one target. So a good card to have in play. You kind of always want to have this in play. There's 2 of them in the deck. The next card is called Overcharged Null Shield. It's an equipment limited, and it reduces damage dealt by K.N.Y.F.E by 1 by the villain target with the highest HP. It reduced damage dealt to K.N.Y.F.E by the villain target with the highest HP by 1. Okay? So, it really useful in that instance where you've got villain targets who deal damage themselves. It also is a power that, if you use it as a power, it allows it to draw 2 cards and destroy this card. So, even if you're playing with a villain target that doesn't deal damage, a villain character that doesn't deal damage, can still be useful to play just for getting more cards in your deck. So not a bad card. The next card is another one of those cards that deals damage to herself. It's called Overdo It. It's an ongoing limited, and at the start of your turn, you may play a card. So basically, it allows you to play an extra card. At the end of your turn, K.N.Y.F.E may deal herself 2 psychic damage. If she does not take damage this way, destroy this card. So, this card is a good card to play, but the only problem with it is that K.N.Y.F.E has no way to draw more cards. So it can get to a point where this card gets redundant, because you can't actually get rid of it unless you somehow stop her from taking the damage, right? So once you play it, it's going to keep doing damage each turn to you, unless you've got some way to mitigate the damage. So you want to be really careful about playing this card. A lot of the times I don't play it, but if you're in a situation where she's got a lot of cards in her hand because you've got other characters that are helping her draw cards, then this card becomes a lot better. But normally, if you aren't playing with any other characters that allow her to draw extra cards, there's no point in playing this card because you're just going to run out of cards to play pretty early on, and then you're just going to be taking psychic damage for no reason. So unless you've got an ability to, unless you've got like some way of destroying ongoing cards, like if you're playing, say for instance, with Visionary or Pass that has an ability, permanent equipment or ongoing cards to destroy ongoing cards, you kind of probably shouldn't play this card. The next card is called Primed Punch. It's an ongoing. And it's not limited, so you can play, there's 3 of them in the deck, so you can play as many of them as you want. Now, the first thing it does is, at the start of your turn, K.N.Y.F.E may deal one target 4 melee damage. If she deals damage this way, destroy this card. Now, it has a power, which is actually better than her base power, once you've got the equipment cards to increase melee and energy damage. So, its power is, K.N.Y.F.E deals one target, 1 melee damage, and 1 energy damage. Now, if she has the 2 equipment cards in play that increase her melee damage and her energy damage, instead of doing 2 damage, she's going to be doing 4 damage with this card. So, very, very good card to play. In fact, you want to have this card in play, and the other 2 cards that increase the damage she does with melee and energy damage, so that you're doing 4 damage a turn to one target. Actually 5 if it's a villain target, as opposed to just doing the 2 damage, or the 3 damage, or the 4 damage with the base power. The next card she has is it's called Prototype Servo Gauntlet. It's an equipment limited. It increases the melee damage by 1. Okay. And it has a power. So this is one of the cards that you always want to have in play. It has a power where K.N.Y.F.E deals one target 2 melee damage. Technically it's 3 melee damage because this card increases the melee damage dealt by 1. If that target is destroyed, you may destroy an ongoing card. So this is what I was talking about, where she had a minor ability to destroy ongoing cards. But because it's predicated on destroying a target, it's not very reliable. So you can't reliably use this to destroy ongoing cards. But if you don't have the Primed Punch card in play, this is probably the better card to play because you'll be doing 3 melee damage as opposed to just doing 2 energy damage. And there's 2 of them in the deck. Now the last card is probably one of the most interesting. There's 4 of them in the deck, and it's called Wrecking Uppercut. Now the first thing about it, which makes it good, is it's a one-shot. K.N.Y.F.E deals one target 3 melee damage. Now, it also discards the top card of the villain deck. Now, by itself, it's not really that... It's a straight-up damage card. But if you're playing with characters that control the villain deck in some way, it's actually really good. Like, for instance, if you're playing with Wraith, right, and you use one of her abilities to... You've used the infrared eyes to see the villain deck, the top 2 cards. If both of those cards are bad, right, and... you know, she doesn't have the other one in play, you can actually play this card as long as you play it. You can actually play this card as long as you go after her to get rid of that bad card and potentially get a better card from the villain deck. It also it works really well with anybody who has deck control. It also works with Tempest. He's got one card called Into the Stratosphere that works on indestructible cards, and what it does is it puts that card, that you play that card, and it puts a villain card on the top of the deck. So if you play that card first, and then you play this card, Now you've discarded that card on the top of the deck. Especially useful against Spite for getting rid of his drug cards. Right? He's got one drug card that forces you to put ongoing and equipment cards back into your hand. So if you use Into the Stratosphere to put that card on the top of the villain deck, and then you play Wrecking Uppercut, now you discard that card and it goes in the villain trash. So this card, not only is it a good straight up damage card, discarding the top of the villain card is very powerful with certain combinations of cards. So it works really well with anybody who controls the villain deck in some way. Cool. So that was her last card, and there's 4 of them in the deck. So this was the discussion of K.N.Y.F.E, the part 1 of the guide. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast, it will directly go to part 3 as opposed to part 2. Part 2 is the playthrough, which I will be doing on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you will actually get to see the playthrough. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I will post the link to the YouTube video, so that if you want to watch the playthrough, you can. And I'll have it organized. I'll have the YouTube organized by chapter, so you can directly go to the playthrough chapter rather than having to listen to the part 1 again. So if you're watching this on podcast, we're going to go straight to part 3 from here. If you're watching this on YouTube, we will transition to part 2. So stay tuned, and we'll continue on to the next section. Thank you. Welcome to part 2 of our K.N.Y.F.E guide for G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Alright, so this is the part of the guide where we're actually going to do a playthrough showing you how to use K.N.Y.F.E. Now the only thing I need to decide is what sort of villain do we want to go with. Go with Gloomweaver. I don't think we did Gloomweaver last time. Okay. So we're going to take the base variant of K.N.Y.F.E. Now we're going to take Wraith. Now we're going to put Wraith before K.N.Y.F.E. because of that Wrecking Uppercut card that I was talking about. And we need a tank. So we'll take Legacy. This time we'll use a variant. I'm going to use this variant here. We'll use a variant of Legacy that... Now we'll use the base variant so that we can increase the damage. Cool. Alright. So let's pick one of the easier environments because this is only for demonstration purposes. And cool. So now we start the fight. Discard a card. Probably Wraith. We've got to get rid of these cards. Now, I should probably have a look at what we got in hand. So we're going to want to use this card to get throwing knives so we can get rid of these zombies. So we got the Wrecking Uppercut and we got the Battlefield Experience. We'll play this. Actually, no, we'll go back. We will play this. Ooh, yes, she got primed punch. Good. And we will use Galvanize. Galvanize is very nice with damage dealers, but don't take it if you're playing characters that damage themselves. So we're going to go like this. Ooh, that's actually really good. So we will play the throwing knives in play. And we will play this to increase the damage of the throwing knives. Now we can get rid of the zombies. And you'll notice, because of Legacy's Galvanize, now that's going to increase my... no, that's not going to increase my melee damage. Now, I've got this card here, but unfortunately this variant, this villain, apart from if he gets flipped to this side, which you never want this to happen, and it only happens when, if at the start of the villain turn there are 3 relics in play. So you want to get rid of his relics as quickly as possible. Because if he flips, you're pretty much done for. It's cool, so what do we want to do? We'll play Battlefield Experience. And we will do damage to that pin. And now I can play another card. And we will play that. Oh, that is the worst card that could have been put in play, is that car card. And that's pretty bad. Oh no, not another one. This is going to get really, really bad really, really fast. Oh wait, no? Is that all it did? They're all going to take damage, so... Play that. Use the power. Galvanize. You can use Razor Ordnance. Got to take him out of the game. Because he's going to do a lot of damage. 2 fire damage. Now, you'll notice that this card actually comes in handy. But the question is... I've got to get rid of that card. So I'm going to... So it's 4 damage. And then we use this card to do 3 damage. Now I get to play a card. And we will play this card. Normally this card is actually really bad if you're playing with like 5 characters, because it does 3 lots of damage. It actually does 6 damage total each to each character. So it's actually a really, really nasty card when you're using multiple heroes. So we're going to use Takedown. And he only takes 1 damage because of the Fortitude card. Now we're going to use this card on him, so he can't do any damage. And then we're going to use this card to get rid of the Cursed Acolyte. To get rid of the zombie. And to get rid of that. No, we're not going to use it. Now you'll notice with Legacy's Galvanize ability, it actually does 4 damage. So it's actually going to do 6 damage. Probably actually 7 damage when we've got the Inspiring Presence card in play. Alright, that card couldn't have come at a better time. Now you can't play a card. Now we're going to play next. Ooh. I'm going to play Thok to try to draw another card. Okay, that draws another card. I kind of want lead from the front. Might as well play this. I'm going to use this to draw a card. And we're going to discard this. We'll get Legacy to draw another card. Yes, that's exactly what we wanted. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to leave this card in our hand for if there ends up being a lot of targets in play. Now we've got these other primed punch cards, but there's no point in playing them. So we're going to play this card because it's going to do a lot of damage to because it does extra damage to the villain target. You notice that with any kind of energy buff, she actually does really good. So she loves... any damage dealers love the base version of Legacy. They really love that Galvanize power. So now we're going to play lead from the front and Galvanize. We'll play that. And we'll discard that. And we will get... This is my favorite base variant. This is my favorite variant of Wraith. But I'll go into that in the Wraith guide. Basically, because she can give the other characters the ability to draw more cards. So, very, very useful. Now, we're still not going to use this card. Because it's going to come in handy later on. So we're going to play this card to increase the energy damage. And now when we play Primed Punch, ooh. Yes, that card came in real handy. We want to play Next Evolution. And we're going to use this card to play Infrared. She can't deal damage this turn anyway, so okay. Very nice. So we'll play this card. So now this is actually going to do a lot more damage. Now we've got to get rid of this pin. So we will go like this. And okay, and we're going to play utility belts, so we can use an additional power in turn. And we will play another mega computer to reduce the damage that the environment targets do. And we will use throwing knives. Yeah, see, we do not want this card to enter into play because it's going to put the top 3 cards in play. So this is the better one. Oh, yeah, it kind of is. It's going to destroy one of their cards. All Gloom Weaver deals that hero 3 psychic damage. So it's an ore card. Nope. Then we're going to play this. Now it allows me to play an extra card. We definitely want to get rid of this indigo pin card. We're just going to play this. Oh, that couldn't have been better. Got to get rid of these lockdown cards. Deal 1 lightning. I don't need to play next evolution because this card only deals 1 damage. But if it was dealing more damage than that, I would probably need to... Because Fortitude is going to block damage by 1. So... That being said, a lot of Gloomweaver's stuff does melee damage for the most part. So we're just going to use Galvanize. Let's have a look. Use the Mega Computer to reduce the damage coming from environment cards. So you'll notice that because of there's 3 of these cards in play, it's going to reduce the damage by any environment target by 3. So this guy's not doing any damage anymore. So we'll use 1 card to check the top. Now, we do not want this coming into play, because you'll notice that each player may discard 2 cards or destroy 1 of their cards. We definitely don't want this card to come into play, so put this one at the top of the deck. And then we're going to go Throwing Knives to do damage to the pin. 2 damage with the second lowest 2 projectile damage. That card increases damage dealt by agents by 1, so he's actually going to be doing 4 damage minus 3, so he's going to be doing 1 damage. Kind of want to get rid of him. So have we got more than 1 in play? Yeah, we do. We've got more than 1 primed punch in play, so we're going to use it to destroy that card. And we're not going to use this one. Now we're going to use... Increase damage dealt by melee by 1. Now this is going to take out the agent officer. What? Oh, that's right. It will take him out because... So now it's doing 6 total damage. So you start to see how she might not be the best at dealing damage to multiple targets, but when it comes to dealing like damage to single targets, she's actually pretty good. Now, this card needs to be destroyed. Now, this card has to be destroyed before the because, as you can see, at the start of the environment, and this card deals a non-inmate target with the second highest HP X melee damage, where X is the number of environment cards. This is going to do 11 damage because there's 11 cards in the trash. So, got to get rid of this card. Now, we're going to play Inspiring Presence to do even more damage. And unfortunately, Legacy can't tank damage from environment cards. So, we're going to use Galvanize. And we're going to play this card because we might as well. We're going to control the villain deck. We don't want this coming into play. Yeah, we definitely don't want this coming into play. So we'll pick that. See how villain controlling the villain deck is extremely important. We'll use this one because we want to do damage to multiple targets. Saber Pin. No, we're not going to destroy a card. Smoke Bombs. So he only takes 1 damage. We're not going to bother with that. Play Primed Punch. Because he's got Fortitude, he takes no damage. Play that so we can kill the zombie. And we'll play that to become immune to... What do we want to not... no, we'll Galvanize. Ooh, we definitely not want to put that card in play. So we're going to put the zombie in play. Take that guy out. And do damage to Gloomweaver. Now don't worry, I will go over Wraith and how she works in her own guide. Eight damage, you can see, is a lot of damage. And we're not going to use it the second time. Now you'll notice I'm keeping these cards in my hand. The reason that I'm keeping these cards in my hand is that if I end up in a situation where this guy draws a lot of relic cards, a lot of cards in play, I can play these cards to get rid of them. May draw a card, play a card, and use a power. Yeah, might as well. No, I regret doing that. But I can play a card. We'll play that card. And so this is going to do 6 damage. And as you can see, I'm doing a lot of damage with her. Like the Kinetic Neutralizer, which is her card. So she's very, very good at dealing a lot of damage to single targets. Now that time-crazed prisoner has to go. Because there's 12 cards in the deck now. Might as well play this card. There's nothing else for me to play. Ooh, do I want to put this or this in play? This one. And we're going to use the throwing knives. We've only got the one primed punch in play, so we're not going to get rid of it. You got to have at least one in play because it is one of her more damaging cards. We're not going to play overdo it. There's no reason to. See, there's no cards I really want to play. I'm keeping these in my hand just in case. So we'll focus on the primed punch. So you'll notice that it's going to do 10 damage because of all the buffs. Doing 10 damage consistently to a villain is a lot of damage, like to be doing consistently. So this is the reason why I said she's very, very good at dealing with single targets. Like, very, very good. She can consistently do a lot of damage because of all her buffs. Now, the time... what cards have we got? Might as well play this. Yeah, get rid of that. Yes, finally I get the legacy ring. That's exactly what I wanted. I'll use galvanize to increase the damage. Now remember, Galvanize works better the more hero cards, the more heroes there are in play. But even with a minor selection of heroes... Now, I'm not going to play this card because... actually, you know what? I think I will. So we've already got smoke bombs in play, so we'll get rid of it. We've already got throwing knives in place, so we already can get rid of it. So we will look at the deck. One irreducible toxic damage. Or it increases the damage of X with the number of zombies in play. This is a very dangerous card to have in play. Especially if at the start of the game, if he starts with a lot of zombies. They become a lot stronger. So, that being said, there's no zombies in play now, so... I think I will, yeah, I'll put this in. So we will go throwing the weapons. And if I have a look at this card, whenever a target other than this card... Okay, so I kind of don't want to destroy this guy because otherwise that card will get healed. So we're going to stop dealing damage. No, we're not going to bother with it. Reduce damage dealt to villain targets by 1. Yeah, I'm just going to focus on dealing him damage. See how much damage she's doing? Like, this is the reason why she's very, very good at dealing with single targets. Now, if I use the Prime Punch ability, he's dead. And that's how you play as K.N.Y.F.E. She's a very, very simple character. I didn't really get to showcase the Wrecking Uppercut discard thing, but she's very, very good at dealing damage to single targets, and she's got enough one-shot cards in her deck that you want to save for dealing with multiple targets. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to move on to part 3 of the guide. So stay tuned, we'll be transitioning now. Welcome to part 3 of our K.N.Y.F.E guide for the Sentinels of the Multiverse game. Alright, so now we're going to talk about team composition and where does she fit in the team. Well, as you would have seen in the playthrough, if you were watching, if you've seen the YouTube playthrough, but even if you haven't, she's essentially a straight up damage dealer. Okay, she's got 6 cards in her deck that allow her to deal damage to multiple targets, but for the most part, she deals damage to single targets, but she has the potential to deal a lot of damage to single targets, and consistently. Or unlike certain other characters that have like these one-off abilities that allow them to deal mega damage, she has the ability to deal like 10 damage to a single target in a turn, just from one power card, and that doesn't include if she uses any one-shot cards. So she does a lot of damage to a single target, especially if that single target is the villain character themselves. So she's a damage dealer. If you are playing with her though, she's sort of better against villains that generally don't put a lot of villain targets in play. If you are playing with a villain target that likes to put a lot of different targets in play, you might want to also take another damage dealer that is better at doing damage to multiple targets, like Tempest, Expatriate. I think her name is Expatriate. Yeah, Expatriate. Mr. Fixer. Any of those other Benchmark. Any of those other damage dealers that that are better at that are more versatile damage dealers, in the sense that they can deal damage to multiple different targets or one target or whatever. So yeah, now we're going to talk about her variant. So as I said, she pretty much fits in any team as a damage dealer. That's what she is. Now, her variant is an interesting twist on the variants. This is the Knife Rogue Agent, and the variant has a base power called Infiltration, where it's a power that reveals the bottom card of a deck. That could be the villain deck if you wanted, but I don't know why you would use the villain deck. So reveal the bottom card of a deck, either put it into play or discard it. So this variant is very good because it plays extra cards for characters. So it's very, very good for getting getting more equipment cards in her hand faster, or getting equipment cans. So she's actually more of a team. So this variant is a lot more of a team support, because the ability to play extra cards is actually really good. And the big advantage of it is you can play it or discard it, so that if it's not a good card, you can just discard it. So if you're playing as Wraith and the inventory barrage card comes up that destroys all equipment cards, you don't have to play it, you can discard it. So this variant is a lot more of a team support, but can also support herself. If you're gonna take any characters that like being able to put extra cards in play, like Unity really loves this variant. Because being able to put extra cards in play is what Unity is all about. So this variant is more of a team support. But that being said, because of the rest of her cards, you're probably going to be doing more damage anyway. You'd probably be using this power at the beginning of the game when you're trying to get set up. And then later on, you're probably not going to be using it. You're going to be focusing on her damage dealing abilities. That being said, though, this variant does make, this base power does make this character way more team support. So, an interesting variant. A very good variant, because it's very different from the base power. Not much really to say about this variant, because apart from characters who want to put extra cards in play really like this, but it also allows characters to get set up easier. Like Legacy really loves this variant, because this variant can help Legacy get to all the cards that he wants to get to by playing extra cards. So he can either play cards that allow him to draw more cards, or he can play cards to get more of his ongoing cards in play. The other interesting thing is there are it mixes with La Comodara. Don't quote me on the correct pronunciation, but essentially that there's a character called La Comodara who essentially has a few abilities that allow her, like especially this one called Rudder in the Time Stream, that allows her to move a card from the bottom of the from the trash to the bottom of a card's deck. This works really well with the variant version of Knife, because now you actually get to see which card this base power is going to put in play for a particular deck. So it does work with like that card, or any deck control cards that put cards at the bottom of the deck. But it's very, very good for getting more cards in play. So yeah, so this was the end of our knife guide for Sentinels of the Multiverse. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you're listening to this on a podcast, please rate it 5 stars if you want to. So there'll be a link in the YouTube video to the podcast, and there'll be a link to the YouTube video in the podcast notes. So thanks for watching. This was G-Man Gaming and Reviews, and this was our guide to Knife. Thank you. Goodbye.